This is the ZMAR Podcast. Elite Benefits of America helps small and mid-sized companies with their health insurance programs. And now, your host, Butch ZMAR.
Hey, welcome back to the ZMAR Podcast. We always bring really great guests on that are working with mid-sized companies or any type of company that's out there that needs to improve things in the workplace. Today, I brought Amanda on that's going to talk about her company, and we're going to talk about some of the problems she solves. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Butch. Good to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you again, too. Can you give our audience a little bit of background and introduction to yourself and your company?
Sure. So I am the founder and CEO of a company called Cornerstone Paradigm Consulting, which might be a mouthful. Yep. But here at CPC, which is our acronym, we are an industry agnostic business operations consulting firm. We are a global firm. So we have very few limitations as to who we can help and how we can help them. But we cover end-to-end business operations. That means companies that feel stuck in redundant processes or kind of feel like they can't scale and grow. We really go in, get to the root cause of what's going on and solve those issues. We focus on things like manual processes, customer experience, customer service, patient experience, depending on the industry. Mm-hmm. And so we really do. We look at everything. We pull back the layers of the onion as it were, right?
Obviously, that's a mouthful, and there's a lot that goes involved in it. And I know there's you had mentioned even before we got on, there's not too many people that do what you guys do in the country, which is phenomenal to even think about, because you think that there would be more of the people. But of the few that I do know, I mean, there's only a couple actually, but I know one guy always says, I know your problem before you know it. And he's like, I see your pain before you even feel it. And by the time you come to me, you're already knee deep into it. Let's talk about some of these employer pains, from scalability. They're wasting time and money and efficiencies. You get a company that starts, they have this great idea. We get moving, products are moving, or whatever their services that they're providing. And then finally it gets to a certain point where I would call the tipping point, right? Like the law of diminishing returns is another way to put it. Can you just walk? I know on your website you have a lot of information, and there's a couple of steps that you outline on there of some of the things that you walk your clients through when you're going through that scalability.
Yeah. So what's really interesting is we're a little bit different than the person that you referenced. So we actually don't know what your problem is.
Oh.
I know what you think your problem is. I know what I think your problem is. And we look to solve, that problem. But the problem really is a symptom, which is how I like to kind of position it.
Good point.
It's kind of like, I have a headache. Does that headache mean, you have a brain aneurysm or, it doesn't. It's a symptom of something else. And so for us, we kind of have to go into any situation when a client comes to us and says, I'm having this issue. We let them know, like in most settings, a consultant, a business process consultant, business operations consultant will say, oh, you have this issue. This is how we'll solve it. And they'll just go and buy that technology or what have you and solve the problem that you believe you have. Our approach is slightly different. So I've been doing this a long time, and I know that anytime a client is feeling a pain point or a symptom, it's a part of a much larger issue. And so when we take our approach, it's kind of covering the entire gamut of the business. It means shadow IT. That means your technology stack. It means your processes. It means customer experience. It means the employee engagement. It means everything. We have to look at everything. Your onboarding process, right? Everything, literally everything. And then we'll say, okay, Butch, you're feeling that symptom because of this. And then we can talk about what we've uncovered, how we can solve it, what does that mean? And then we obviously take it all the way into implementation.
Yeah, sure. When you're going through the evaluation of that, like some of our listeners would probably be curious, because I was curious when you were talking, is like, how long does that process take to actually come up with an analysis or a report saying, here's your pain points, or here's why you're having those symptoms? What kind of time frame that is involved in that, and how much engagement with the staff to get the information you need?
Great questions. I think there is a little bit of a misconception that the assessment, as it's sometimes referred to, we call it discovery, is quick. It's a couple of days. We spend 2-3 hours. It actually takes hundreds of hours to pull together all of the data. I want to look at all of the documents, reports, onboarding. I want to look at everything pertaining to directly and indirectly to the symptom, right, that you came to us for.
Right.
Then I want to talk to the team. Then I want to observe. And sometimes observing can be done virtually, like if you're in another country or, you're a remote business or what have you. And so we save hundreds of hours. I'm talking to your IT team. I want to know your tech stack. I want to know, the relationship between all of your technology. What, do they talk to, do the pieces of technology talk to each other? So it does. It takes hundreds of hours of our time. But the demand on the client is usually it's an hour or two here and there. I'll interview you maybe this week, and then you won't hear from me for another 2 weeks. And so we don't try to disrupt the business as we're doing our sort of investigation, if you will.
Right.
But the end result is usually pretty eye-opening. I've never presented a map and all the findings and had anyone say, I knew that. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
It's always like, oh my God.
I'm sure. And before we went live here, you were sharing a story with one of your current clients, and you helped them move to a process and bring some things even in-house instead of outsourcing. And you end up helping them save millions, I think you said, millions of dollars in the process of building everything from end to end and then having an efficiency so they could start scaling once again.
So again, the initial discovery does take a really long time. And that's obviously deliberate. We want to really understand current state completely. Even the current state that you don't even know is your current state. And then it answers a lot of questions that help us, in this case, years down the line, right? So I understand their process. I've never even seen it. And I can say, Butch, are you doing this, this, and this? And you'll obviously come to the conclusion that you're not. And then we'll walk through it. We'll work through like why we designed it this way, why this works best, and how we can help you adopt that. And in most cases, millions of dollars is being very, modest. We can save tens of millions, hundreds of millions in some cases, just depending on how big the company is and how big the problem is, right?
Hey, gang, ever wonder what it's like to be a small business owner? It's confusing. Weird expenses coming out of nowhere. And when you throw in health insurance, forget it. Nobody understands how that works. If you own a business, big or small, it's one of the biggest expenses you have all year long. And yet, we all wait until open enrollment at the end of the year, and then we think to ourselves, next year I'll get a jump on it. And then it's another year of paying way too much. If you're a business owner, big or small, HR representative that wants to impress the boss, give Butch Zemar of Elite Benefits of America a call. Save yourself or your boss thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars a year. Reach out to Butch right now, 708-535-3006, or shoot him an email, butch@elitebenefits.net. And be sure to check out the Zemar podcast. Don't wait till the last minute. Put Butch Zemar to work for you now.
Is the process still the same to do the analysis if there's a merger or acquisition that occurs, and make sure the process gets transferred or upgraded in some degree during the acquisition, or do you take them down a different process to make sure that there's continuity with the acquisition?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Yeah. So with an M&A case, it's usually, I think some people can look at it as one party wins and one party loses. Actually, we want to look at it as two environments are never going to be the same. And so we want this new environment to win. It needs to be a win across the board. And so it's now reevaluating, going through a discovery. How are we going to merge these two environments? A lot of the times it's for us to understand current state of the company that did the acquiring. And then how can we fit this new entity into your new organization? Because it is never going to be the same. It's never going to operate as it did before you acquired that new company. And so it's about really merging the two environments into this new environment that will quite literally never be the old environment.
It sounds like it's a complicated process, but obviously you and your staff make it at least as simple as possible. And the other thing we were talking about before we jump on board, that you would be surprised how many small, mid-sized, or even large companies that don't have a process. Why is this? I mean, why wouldn't at some point they hire an employee that starts building on this? Is it just because they just get too busy with their business? What have you seen where some of those companies that don't have it and they're at a size where they probably should?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately or fortunately, whether you're a small company, you're just starting out, you're a one man show, right, or one woman show, or you're a large enterprise, you'd be really surprised how lack thereof process is in place, and a lot of it has to do with as the company scales and grows, turnover, new people come in, no one has ever standardized the process, and when you hire a new person to come in, they'll say, oh, I've been doing it this way for 20 years, and they'll do it there, so there's no one to really kind of spearhead the driving of the process. And this is how we do it. If you've seen, and maybe this is an interesting example, but if you've ever been to like a fast food restaurant, they have a process. It is a part of the franchise that you do 1, 2, 3, 4 in this way. And, you follow their temperatures, and they have it all written out. And that is why like a fast food franchise can be successful and scale the way that they do, because they have it written out. Where if you look at a company like a bank or an insurance company or what have you, right, these really large hospitals, these really large enterprises, and you would think, oh yeah, they absolutely have a process, but 9 times out of 10, they don't. They have several processes, and there's no real consistency, which turns out to be a lot of bottlenecks, a lot of money wasted, tens of millions, hundreds of millions in some case wasted, just because, there's no one to really own it and say, no, actually, this is how we do it here. And have someone, frankly, like me. And the person like me is going to take the longer way. You have to go through the whole thing. There is no technology, despite what anyone tries to sell you. There is no technology that will do it. I've seen them. I've had too many calls with them. There is no technology that will replace someone like me to really go through the whole thing. And so it's expensive, it's time consuming, and I get it, but supply chain, insurance, no matter what industry you're in, you're never going to get out of this without someone truly like me.
And obviously the ROI on it is going to be there. Now, during your course of work and building this, you have somehow been able to carve out time for a couple things, but one being is your CPC TV. And then obviously you're doing interviews and bringing people on. And so for some that are maybe on the fence of looking at this, what are some topics that you bring on? I know you and I are scheduled to do it sometime this year, but there's other ones that between IT and other, can you give our audience a little background on how you came up with the podcast, so to speak, and then what kind of audience or what kind of guests do you bring on?
I want to say it was probably last year sometime. We had actually kicked off the CPC TV or the podcast with the idea behind one of my core beliefs, which is knowledge is power. There are a lot of people, certainly in my space, that aren't really true ops practitioners. Most people don't know the difference between someone who is a great problem solver, which, it's not a dig to them. Don't send me hate mail. I don't want to hear it. But it's not a dig to them. It's just they're not real practitioners like myself. And so they can do it for a few $1,000s, right?
Right.
And give you the assessment. They can spend 2 or 3 hours or whatever. Whatever. I don't know what they do, but and so I found that it was, and we do spend or have spent in the past most of our time with large companies because they have a lot of antiquated systems and, manual processes and so on and so forth. But the thought behind the CPC TV, similar to your show, Butch, is one, I think knowledge is power. We talk about business to business, and that can mean a whole host of things. Insurance, IT, wellness, employee engagement, HR, whatever it might be. The goal is to provide our audience value and allow them to make that decision. And also to expose them to some of the people that are in my network. And so I might say, oh, okay, so you're looking for this kind of person. Oh, I actually have someone in my network who specializes in that. And if you want to meet him or her, you can see their interview on CPC TV and what they're actually like. And I think it allows, the viewers to get a sense of who we are as people, as folks like you and I are interacting on your show or my show. Right. But I also think it humanizes us and what we do. And for me, it's going to allow me to obviously clear up any misconceptions about
and what you do,
ops and PPI and business process.
I know it's on LinkedIn a lot, if not your homepage, and I'll include links in the show notes. And then you also figure out time. I don't know how you do it with your busy schedule, but you even have a spot on the website about you giving back, right? So that you guys obviously do a lot of stuff. Some of it's running. We have a common interest in running, but you have a lot of other events. And I tell you, I just wanted to highlight that because at the end of the day, giving back is definitely where people prosper, not only financially, but just in equity of being a human and the work environment that we work in. And so I just wanted to highlight that. And it looks like even 2022, you're still going, right? So there's a lot of give back that you do. Yeah.
And I think, not even personally, it's important to me, but it also is professionally to share that. And it's not to show off or to say, we've donated to this. It's more about who we are as a company, who I am as a person, who I am as a leader, if I can call myself that. I don't even know. But even our consultants most of them are 1099 consultants. I encourage them. If you want to do something in the give back space, if you want to raise money for cancer research, if you want to run, right? If you want, and by the way, I aspire, Butch, to be you. I don't know that that's ever going to happen. My running, you don't actually want to see because not a whole lot happens there. But I think, it's about thinking about other people, getting outside of your own head, getting outside of your own space and doing something nice for someone else. Certainly is a part of our core. I've told my team, I have people all over. And I told my team, what do you want to do for give back? And I'm trying to reiterate that they don't have to do, a marathon or or whatever. They can do whatever they want. But no, I encourage it. It's something important to me personally, as well as the work.
Yeah. Well, this has definitely been great. And now if somebody wanted to reach out to you to further the conversation that you and I are having about taking it from end to end and evaluation or, scale, how do they get in touch with you and what's the easiest way to do that?
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn, just Amanda Russo. You'll see that I'm the CEO of Cornerstone Paradigm Consulting, or you can head to our website, cpcchangeagent.com. Probably LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. If it's not me, it'll be one of my team members. So
awesome. Sure. Yeah, great. I'll include them in the show notes. Definitely head over and see the CPC TV. I catch snippets of it, and it's definitely great content. And you're bringing on people that you work with and bring value to the employers that you work with. So I definitely appreciate your time today, and I look forward to having you back on and maybe further the conversation, and maybe we'll get you up in mileage with running and be able to collaborate on that.
Well, I look forward to all of that. I don't know about the running part again. I don't know that anyone wants to see it. There's nothing to see, trust me. Butch is really the one who's crushing it in the miles space. But
100 miles,
maybe
here I come.
Teach me your process.
Right. All right. Well, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Butch, thanks for having me.